return to the office. And in fact, it is one of the saddest things that I've noticed is the lack of trust that people now have in our criminal justice system. And in my view, it is a direct result of some unfortunate incidents that occurred over the years. And this isn't to cast blame or aspersion or to even get into a political discussion, but it is a sad fact and a sad reality that certainly over the past, I would say, 8 to 10 years ago, the Department of Justice was unfortunately politicized in some ways that did not redound to its benefit. And I don't necessarily mean if you were one of the U.S. attorneys who actually got fired, which tends not to happen unless an administration turns over, but that happened. But there were other things that occurred, and they've come to light, and there have been OIG reports, and there have been studies about that. And if you go down to Main Justice, you see people will talk to you. For example, the Civil Rights Division became a shadow of itself in certain years, and that was extremely unfortunate. And again, I look at every administration as everyone is doing the best they can to protect the American people. We all have the same goal, one team, one fight, and people do it in different ways. But sometimes those ways play out, and in this instance, they have played out in a way that has affected not just the way in which we try cases, but the way in which we talk about criminal justice and criminal law and the way we view our system. And I see it upon my return to the office when I would present what used to be a fairly traditional matter. The prospect, for example, of prosecuting a federal case in federal court. There is nothing more innocuous or plain vanilla than that prospect. And yet, as many of you will recall, when the discussion was had over where to prosecute certain terrorism cases, the discourse shifted and it went completely into the political arena. And for many of us who consider ourselves career prosecutors, whether we're in or out, your heart's always sort of there, it was a very difficult discussion to even watch, because it tied to nothing about the actual case and more about the political realities and issues that people had and what they wanted to talk about. And as we've seen, as most recently, Antonia's colleagues just recently handled very successfully a major terrorism trial, and that office has done so for years, going back to the days of the first World Trade Center bombing. My office, in fact, has prosecuted more terrorism cases in Article III courts than any other district in the country since 9/11. All safely, all securely, but that debate got hijacked and it got cast aside. So that was a very difficult thing to see. And those are the large ways in which you see it. The smaller ways in which I would see this are when you go into court and you present a certain view, and judges that used to rely upon the government will question you in a way that shows that they don't necessarily know, that they don't disbelieve you, but they want to know, well, Loretta's AUSA is saying this, but really, is she going to be able to back them up? Is department policy going to continue to back them up in certain ways? And so there's a level of questioning. And this isn't to say that questioning is bad. I think the criminal justice system always has to be open for scrutiny, open for review, open for questions. That's the only way in which we make it better. And there's a number of things I think that are going on now in criminal justice policy that are a result of questioning and scrutiny and discussion from years ago. But this fundamental lack of distrust, I have basically seen the department going through almost a post-Watergate era, where the first thing that you say is no longer viewed as, here are the dispassionate prosecutors, but gee, what's their agenda? And for someone who truly loves the department and loves what I do, and thinks of it, frankly, as a public trust, it sometimes is disheartening. I think we're coming out of that. I think it's one of those things that you work through simply by doing the best you can and by doing the work and showing people why you were doing the work and being as open and as transparent as possible. But I have to say that is probably the biggest change in the way criminal justice is perceived of in this country, and it's been a sad one, but I think, as I said, one that we're working through. And I'll just conclude my remarks by saying that I was fortunate enough to be